COSET KAS workshop will be commencing shortly. May I ask you to take your seats and switch off your mobile phones and other electronic devices, please? Thank you. Distinguished guests and speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. My name is Silvia and I have the great pleasure today to be your MC. It is my honor to welcome you to the ISAS COSET KAS workshop on re-energizing the SAARC process. Today our program is very busy, our schedule is tight, so we would appreciate if all of us could keep with the timings that have been given to us. It is my pleasure now to invite Professor Subrata Mitra, Director of the Institute of South Asian Studies, NUS Singapore, to give his opening remarks. Professor Mitra, please.
Excellencies, distinguished visitors, our honored guests, members of the ISAS research community, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our chairman, Ambassador Pillai, who sends his apologies, and the entire ISAS community, I am honored to be able to greet you all and welcome you all to this very important occasion. We have done a head count, and in my 2 years and a bit in ISAS, I don't remember ever having in one room, inside 4 walls of freedom that academia gives us, such distinguished people. Here's the head count. We have with us today 3 former ministers from 3 SAARC countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Nepal, 2 former permanent representatives to the United Nations, 1 retired foreign secretary, 2 ex-major generals, and very, very important members of the Singapore and South Asian civil society. We are here to put our minds together on re-energizing the SAARC process. Now that's a tall order, and we have just one day, but that's one thing that Singapore does, how to make a lot out of a little. So that is the main objective of this meeting, how to put together ideas that might define the little definite steps to go from here to there. Here you see a moribund organization that is struggling to take off really, and there you have excellent examples of regional organizations, ISAS being one of them, and which could produce a lot of positive results for our partner countries. Now, the question that I have to answer are, why is ISAS involved with it? And what is the theoretical problem that stops this region from integrating as well as it could and it should? And what is the political significance of the moment, of the now, that defines the background against which this conversation is taking place? ISAS, or Institute of South Asian Studies, is 5 things stuck together. It is a think tank. We are funded by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Industry of Singapore, and the ministry has major think tanks. You want to know why does such a small country have such large think tanks for South Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, energy, and it goes on. The think tank has the responsibility of interpreting South Asia to Singapore and Singapore to South Asia. In the language of the ministry, our job is to connect Singapore stakeholders to the stakeholders of South Asia. That's our first objective. But we are also a research institute and a part of the National University of Singapore, which is a very self-conscious university, which is self-conscious about its ranking, and its ranking comes from increments to knowledge. So, I, as a member of our research community, constantly, self-consciously look towards the rest of NUS. What have we done? What are we doing to be part of this August university? Where is the increment to knowledge? And that is where my intellectual objective this morning comes in. What makes units to come together to produce a regional organization, and what are the theories of international relations, neo-realism, neo-constructivism, institutional liberalism have to say, and what are these hypotheses and why are they not working in the South Asian case? Our third objective is to become a major platform for people who have important ideas to contribute or important connectivities to offer. So we are a platform for people such as yourselves to come, and as we like to think of Singapore as the hub of the world and ISAS as the hub of Singapore, so from here to reach out to the rest of the world. We are also a major publisher of new knowledge about South Asia, and this new knowledge is not just theoretical knowledge, and it's not journalistic knowledge either. Our mandate enjoins us to think in terms of middle term, not the short term, like journalists, or long term, like university type of research, but in the middle term, what can be done, what is being done, that is what we call policy analysis, and ISAS is an avid publisher of policy briefs, policy insights, and policy-based working papers. And surely there will be an output out of this one. We also have a fifth activity, which is to enhance the capacity of Singapore to think about South Asia. We do this by taking interns from Singapore, train them to think of the South Asian stuff. and activities like this, which is why this is not a closed-door conference, but an open-door one. We invite the public of Singapore to join in and to be part of these deliberations so that the knowledge base of Singapore with regard to South Asia can grow. We were set up in 2004 when the president of the time, Mr. Nathan, said, we need an organization like this to let Singaporeans know that South Asia is little more than princess and snake charmers. And that was the Singapore knowledge of South Asia at the time. And in the years that we have been in activity, we have published a lot. And today, South Asia is thought of a little differently. So, for these 5 activities, this meeting of Konrad Adenauer Foundation, COSAT and ISAS, I think, is very propitious in terms of the potential it holds. And the deliberations of today have that main objective of catering to these 5 different objectives of ISAS. I have a special debt of gratitude to the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. I told Echle earlier today, because 1995 I had joined the University of Heidelberg in 1994 as a professor, and the first thing I did was to go to Bonn to the Konrad Adenauer Foundation and said, and we need to work together to promote democracy in South Asia, because all the German institutes, German funding institutes, like Konrad Adenauer Foundation, have that on their manual. So Frau Krieger said, well, we are doing it anyway. What is so special about you? So I had to tell her that I'm not a journalist, I'm not a politician, I'm a political scientist. My job is not only to promote dialogue, but to see if there is value added by measuring what is happening to this dialogue. How can you measure politics? I said, Frau Krieger, we are in the business of doing public opinion studies. I can measure democratization of South Asia through a public opinion analysis. Can you do that? I've done my sums already. I said, yes, for a small grant. That's how I got my first 90,000 D-mark. And South Asia Institute and Konrad Adenauer Foundation started working together. I've always believed that this is an opportunity for think tanks, for research organizations, and for universities to cooperate. So, sehr herzlich willkommen, wir machen weiter. For COSAT, I have to thank Dr. Nishchal Pandey. From the early days when I was in Heidelberg and we met up, he has remained a supporter. And my dream was to get the Consortium of South Asian think tanks, who normally can have as members only think tanks of South Asia who are in South Asia. They had made an exception, they had smuggled me in as a visitor. And my hope was, rather my dream, to bring together COSAT, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and my home now, the Institute of South Asian Studies. That dream, I was telling General Banerjee, again, he's someone I've known from my own days in Heidelberg, when he was very much a serving general, and joined us as an academic, and subsequently also as a member of the editorial board of Contemporary South Asia, which was the main journal devoted to South Asia. And my hope, my dream was for this trial to meet. That dream, now that I have you all here, is half filled already because you are here. The other half will depend on what we do about it. That's where I come to the theoretical question. Why do people cooperate? Why do egoists join hands to promote their general welfare? At which point, since my German colleagues are present, I'll have to talk about the First World War and how, along 500 miles, there was on one side the Anglo-French army, on the other side was the German army, and they were celebrating Christmas. They were fighting all right, but at Christmas they could have a truce. That has been modeled by a game theorist called Axelrod, and he says if there are 4 conditions, then egoists can join hands. Those are knowledge, proximity, reciprocity, and recursiveness. Along this frontier, there is trench warfare. You have knee-deep mud and you are stuck. On one side is this 18-year-old German man who has left behind his sweetheart, his mother, and on the other side are the Anglo-French soldiers of the same age. They don't want to die. They have the knowledge of what it means to live and what it means to die. They have knowledge of one another. They can see one another. That's the proximity. That's trench warfare. And they know, if I'm nice to you, you'll be nice to me. If I'm nasty to you, you'll be nasty to me. They also know that there is a tomorrow because they're stuck in the mud. That there is a tomorrow, there is a recursiveness. If these four conditions are there, they discover, those soldiers, that you can implicitly, independent of the head offices in Berlin and London, work out a method of firing a signal shot so that you can come out of the trenches, go to the loo or do whatever, and then another firing shot, warning shot, saying, now we are going to shoot for real. So you go back to the trenches. That's how truce was celebrated. And that is how, Axelrod says, egoists can lock themselves into cooperation. Now, these are necessary conditions, they are not sufficient conditions, and this truce can be broken. And the head offices who thought that the proportion of shots to deaths was going down found a method of breaking it. So even and I are locked in, so we get a third party to come and attack. And when that happens, trust breaks down. So why is truce not breaking, truce not happening? Why is South Asia not locked into what I would call a active, vigorous peace? Why are we not a region? Why is the share of trade of the South Asian states to their general trade not going up? It has stagnated under 5%, way below the similar percentage in many other regions. So I've looked at the literature a little and I have found that regions can form if there is a functional need for it, if there is a hegemon which can pull them together, if there is a legal framework which makes cooperation possible, and if there is what is called an ideational structure and intersubjectivity of ideas of elites, a little bit like the idea of Europe. Why is it not happening? Unlike Europe, unlike Southeast Asia, the elites of South Asia can actually talk to one another, thanks to the colonial legacy, they all speak English. And many people believe that North India and Pakistan are much closer together than North India and South India in terms of culture. So why are we not able to do something that we can do in Europe? Have breakfast in Prague, lunch in Frankfurt, and then you have a choice of having dinner in Madrid or Rome or wherever. For an ordinary businessman, this is possible. So why can't we start in Kabul and have lunch in Delhi, then have the choice of going to Kolkata or Dhaka or Colombo for a business deal? Where are the equivalents of the South Asians who as children went and spent a summer in another family? That's how, after the war, the French and Germans started linking up. Now, what is more precious to you than your children? And you let them go to a French family. Now, where are the Erasmus students? Why are these little steps not possible? And I'll come to an end by reminding you that for my generation, and many of you, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished generals, distinguished politicians, for our generation, we have to ask ourselves, what are we leaving behind for the young South Asians who are present? I asked this question from ISAS because that's the first time in my life where I feel so close to South Asia, because at ISAS we work with people who are not from Pakistan or Bangladesh or India, who are from South Asia. Sitting with you on the podium is a man who was born in India, worked for Pakistan, now represents Bangladesh. That's Dr. Chowdhury, one of my main inspirations. And sitting next to him is Nishchal. Again, I know where it comes from, I've just paid my respect to your father. The idea that it's not the size of the country, it's the size of your imagination that matters. So is Nepal, one of our main inspirations. And from Singapore, from ISAS, we are equidistant to all of South Asia. So when I look at news coming in of the Chinese and Indian soldiers actually going down to the most primitive form of warfare, which is fighting with your fists or with sticks and stones. Or when I listen to the Mirwais of Kashmir, who had just been released, giving a very moving speech about the need for compassion to divide families that have been united. He's not talking about compassion for his Pandit fellow members of Kashmir community who are not there. His compassion doesn't extend all the way. I ask myself, shall we waste this opportunity of our togetherness? Shall we be diplomatic in terms of saying that which cannot be said? Or shall we take the opportunity of the four walls of freedom that academia gives us to speak up? Because today, I've been told, at the end of the day, which is over dinner, I'll be coming up with a proposal to follow up the harvest that we'll get from this conversation with an agenda and to take it further. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great opportunity. Let's make the most out of it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Mitra. May I now invite Dr. Nishchal Pandey, Director of the Center for South Asian Studies, Kathmandu, Nepal, and Convenor, Consortium of South Asian think tanks, to deliver his address. Dr. Pandey, please.
Thank you, Sylvia. Director of the Institute of South Asian Studies, National University of Singapore, Professor Mitra. Director of the Political Dialogue Asia Program of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, Mr. Christian Echle, Dr. Iftekhar A Chowdhury. Heads and representatives of South Asian think tanks, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what a great pleasure to partner with the Institute of South Asian Studies, ISAS, here in Singapore for this workshop on re-energizing the SAARC process. As one of the first foreigner visiting research fellow here at ISAS, way back in 2006, I'm elated to see that ISAS has emerged as the most premier think tank of repute in Southeast Asia, as South Asia also emerges as a top destination of East Asian trade, investment, tourism, with increased focus on interregional connectivity. I feel the role and function of ISAS will be more crucial in the days to come. It was last year in Bangkok, planning meeting that we had, discussed the idea of a joint collaborative conference here in Singapore with Professor Mitra, who had also kindly participated. It is now finally realized with participation of some of the most prominent think tanks of South Asia, some of the best minds that we have in the region. In today's era, the notion of jointness or collaborative or cooperative approaches have to be given due emphasis, not only for easing financial burden in holding these events, but also to bring in newer faces, fresher ideas, and alternative discourse on issues facing South Asia. Hussain is primarily a network of some of the most renowned think tanks of South Asia, set up in 2008, and we have delved in the past on pertinent topics facing our vast, rich, culturally vibrant region. Till date, we have taken up topics such as radicalization and terrorism, connectivity, environmental protection and disaster management, and energy security. We organize our conferences in various capitals of South Asia and sometimes also in Southeast Asia. And we take pride in the fact that some of our publications are today in university curriculums as subjects under political science or international relations. COSAT also serves as a bridge between track 1 and track 2 of South Asia, as some of our member think tanks are under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Ministry of Defense, while others are fully independent and privately funded. We are thankful to the Political Dialogue Asia program of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung for their generous support for our initiative, and under Mr. Christian Echle, who is based here in Singapore, I am sure our cooperation will be further solidified for the collective benefit of our region and EU on the one hand, and South Asia and Southeast Asia on the other. Friends, we are meeting here today at a time of great tension in South Asia. Some of it are old, festering problems since the time of the partition. Others have sprouted lately and demand close attention. Unlike in other regions, confidence-building measures are not fully developed. Third-party mediation is never really encouraged. And our civil society also is not potent enough to bring in conflicting sides to the negotiating table. This reality either leaves nations to resolve their bilateral problems by themselves, or rests hope on the only regional organization that we have, which is the SAARC. Now, SAARC is a platform for the leaders of South Asia to work together in spirit of amity, goodwill and understanding. It aims to promote the welfare of the people, to improve their quality of life through accelerated socio-economic growth and political development in the region. Since its inception, SAARC has been hosting summits. However, the pace of its work has been very sluggish. Poor implementation on the outcome of every summit has proven that SAARC is over-enthusiastic in declaration, but equally tardy in its execution. It has now become essential to realize that the people are getting impatient with the lack of progress on any given area of regional activity. If one is to analyze the 18 summits in the last 3 decades, all have some significant hallmark, even though most of the time summits have failed to achieve declared goals. From the first summit's 14-point Dhaka Declaration to the 18 summits' 36-point Kathmandu Declaration, SAARC has made 765-point declarations so far in the last 32 years. Various issues of common interest to the region, such as poverty alleviation, eradicating terrorism, promoting energy trade, ensuring food security, climate change adaptations, have all been identified. However, when the performance is compared with resolutions, SAARC's achievement is rather disappointing. It is estimated that 53.1% of the total population in South Asia live below the poverty line, 28.2% below nationally defined poverty line, and 40% below the internationally defined poverty line of $1.25 PPP per day. SAARC, as the common regional body, has not been able to dent on poverty and hunger prevalent in our societies. Even after 32 years of its establishment, the regional association is recognized only for its survival and for giving continuity to a dialogue for cooperation among member states. So much so that the 14th summit held in New Delhi, the leaders declared, and I quote, "There is an urgent need to move SAARC from declaratory to implementation phase," unquote. But despite of this, very little has been achieved to this end. And despite of efforts from the international community and civil society of both countries, India-Pakistan relations have remained what I call an astrologer's paradise. 6 decades have passed, yet both countries have comprehensively failed to erect a solid foundation of trust between themselves in order to channelize the bilateral relations into profitable areas of trade, investment, connectivity and tourism. The reason for the establishment of SAARC was not only to remove the political hurdles and misunderstandings, but also with an economic rationale for an increase of trade between member states, and was meant to lead to higher productivity as witnessed in other successful blocs such as ASEAN, NAFTA, the EU and the Eurasian Economic Community. Firstly, by the means of preferential trading arrangement and then through a free trade area. Since its infancy, SAARC leaders and officials have been trying to duplicate, albeit without success, the EU and ASEAN models, as evident in the launching of various centers, initiatives and conventions. By virtue of comparing with other economic blocs, the degree of economic integration has been categorized into 7 stages even in South Asia. Preferential trading area, free trade area. We have also envisaged customs union, common market. We have also talked about economic union and a common currency, a monetary union and complete economic integration. However, all of us know that this has not taken place. This morning it is also heartening to note that our new publication, Countering Youth Radicalization and Violent Extremism in South Asia, will be released. This is a compilation of 2 very important conferences conducted by COSAT on the twin subjects of preventing terrorism and violent extremism in South Asia, held on April 3-4, 2017 in Colombo, and Countering Youth Radicalization in South Asia on February 27 and 28, 2017 in Kathmandu. it hardly needs to be underscored that these issues are of critical importance to the region and to the whole world. Increasingly so as we witness violent acts of terror being perpetuated by young fanatics in the pretext of religion, social exclusion, ethnicity, and economic depravity. We will not only be placing the publication on the web, but also in Kindle, so that it reaches a wide audience internationally. I am also thankful and grateful to the ISAS, Dr. Chowdhury, in particular to you, for thinking of a MOU between the Center for South Asian Studies and the Institute of South Asian Studies. I think this will prove pivotal in more frequent exchange of scholars, researchers, academics between our two institutes in the future. Well, from the COSAT side, let me once again welcome you and invite you for a full day of brainstorming discussion today here on re-energizing the SAARC process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. I would like now to invite Mr. Christian Echle, Regional Program Director, Political Dialogue Asia, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, to deliver his address. Mr. Echle, please.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Professor Mitra, Dr. Pandey, Excellencies, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome here in Singapore, here at ISAS, to today's event on behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung's Political Dialogue for Asia. I'm the still fairly new incoming director. I took over the program 2.5 months ago. And I have to say I'm deeply honored and excited to sit among so much experience, so much expertise regarding South Asia. I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, but I realized that I can connect it very well with the experiences that were shared with me already last night at the dinner and today when Dr. Chowdhury was posted in Bonn 83 to 85, preparing German President Weizsäcker's visit to Bangladesh. I was 3 years old in the south of Germany, not knowing too much about world politics. When Professor Mitra was talking to my colleagues at headquarters in the early 90s, I was just starting second school, also in the south of Germany, learning Latin and English and slowly get knowledge of all the world. And even when COSAT was founded, I was not yet a member of the foundation. I only joined the foundation in 2007 after I finished my studies. I'm a journalist by training, and so the first few years with the foundation, I spent as an expert on social media, and then in 2012 I took over the media program for Sub-Saharan Africa, where I spent the last 4.5 years. And now I'm in Asia all of a sudden, and I have to learn a lot about Asia, and I think today is a wonderful opportunity for me to do this, especially about South Asia. But I can't tell you anything really about South Asia. I can't give you any advice. I'm really here to learn. I can share a few lessons about the regional integration that the European Union went through, or Europe went through. But before I do that, let me just tell you a little bit about the program, the political dialogue that I'm heading from Singapore with 10 people in total. We are working in 4 fields, and mainly we are enhancing confidence and security in the region through our security programs, especially looking at counterterrorism measures, exchange between NATO and Asia. We are empowering leaders, we are empowering future leaders for the region through a program which is called the CAS School of Young Politicians. We also support several networks in the region, for example, the Asian Women's Parliamentarian Caucus. Thirdly, we are supporting, or we are trying to understand the digital change that is brought over us, and I think that is relevant for all parts of the world. In Europe, we are struggling with it. In Asia, we see some very interesting examples how to deal with the digital advantages, but also how to deal with the disadvantages that come with digitalization. And lastly, and this brings us together today, we are fostering transnational collaboration through our work with ISAS, just down the road, the Institute for Southern Eastern Asian Studies, and of course, COSAT, the network of South Asian think tanks. And being a think tank ourselves, actually a fairly successful one, being ranked among the top 10 think tanks in Europe, Konrad Adenauer Foundation knows how important it is to bring thinkers together and what kind of effect they can have on the somewhat slow political processes that we face, especially when it comes to regional integration. And after the experience of the dinner last night, I don't have a doubt that there's a lot of convinced South Asians in this room, not convinced Indians, convinced Bangladeshis, but South Asians, and this is what we need for this process. And this is also the experience that I would like to share now regarding the European Union, where I think we had a historical coincidence of great leaders and the right situation, the right framework in the early 50s to start thinking about a Europe which is more connected, more peaceful, where there's open trade, open borders. I mean, this was all a dream in the 50s, but there were people dreaming this dream and starting to work on this. And I think I can name the name giver of our foundation, Konrad Adenauer, and the French President de Gaulle, who started this process very much by signing the Franco-German Friendship Treaty, which took into account that we have to have the advancement of human values, dignity, to build peace, and to encourage connectivity in Europe. So the right leaders is something which is just very much needed for such a process, and we can only hope and we can work with them in order to bring them to this realization that this is also relevant for South Asia. I think what is very interesting if you look at Europe is how we deal with our history, and this is maybe the second message that I would like to bring to you and to South Asia. It took a very long time and many wars, but I think we came to a situation where we can talk very honestly, very open about our history. And I think this is especially true for Germans who don't play the best role in the European history. But our culture of commemoration of positive events, but also of the very negative events around the First and Second World War, are key, from my point of view, for our understanding of Europe and why it's so important to foster the European Union. And this is probably a challenge for South Asia as well, to deal with the history, the history of conflict, the history of violence, in a way that can bring something positive and can bring the need to the realization of the need for cooperation. Thirdly, the youth, and Professor Mitra was already mentioning the Erasmus program of the European Union, which I benefited of myself. I spent half a year in Sweden when I was 22, studying there, yes, a little bit, but also mainly meeting people from other parts of Europe, Swedish, Norway, France, Spain, Italy, and for the first time engaging in really interesting conversations about the situation in these countries, the policies in these countries, what young people in these countries feel and think, and this was incredibly valuable for my development as a European citizen. It is about the money, that's true, there was some support from the European Union, but it's also about the academic landscape to enable young people just to go across borders and to study in a way that they can bring back some benefits to their home university. So I think this is an incredibly successful program, and I think this is also something which could promote regional integration in other parts of the world. And lastly, I think I cannot only talk about the positive aspects of the European Union, we also have to address Brexit and the like. Brexit was caused by dishonest communication about the possibilities, the challenges, and the success of the European Union. If national governments tend to always attach the negative developments to the regional body and the successes to the own work of the national government, then we are obviously in a problematic situation. We have to be honest about the successes of the regional bodies, but we also have to be honest about the challenges that come with it. And I think only with this very honest communication we can take our citizens with us on the way to regional integration. With newer challenges such as migration and refugees, radicalization and terrorism, our open political atmosphere in Europe is tested to its limits, that's true. And cynics point out that the dangers of a single visa system and the enormous goodwill and cooperation among member states, which we hold dearly. And in this situation, I understand that COSAC is a unique initiative that brings in a notable way think tanks from Southeast Asia together. Both government and non-governmental participants discuss crucial issues facing the region of South Asia. We as Konrad Adenauer Foundation are very happy to support this process, and I'm looking very much forward to continue this process for the future years. So thank you very much for coming today, and thank you very much for the good discussions that I'm sure we will face, and all the best for this.
Thank you, Mr. Echle. We would now proceed to the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Institute of South Asian Studies, Singapore, and the Center for South Asian Studies, Kathmandu, Nepal. The Institute of South Asian Studies will be represented by Professor Subrata Mitra, Director and Visiting Research Professor. The Center for South Asian Studies will be represented by Dr. Nishchal N Pandey, Director. Thank you, Professor Mitra and Dr. Pandey. I would request both of you to kindly remain on stage for the launch of the report. We would now proceed to the launch of the report on countering youth radicalization and violent extremism in South Asia by the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and the Consortium of South Asian think tanks. The report will be launched by Mr. Christian Echle, Major General Dipankar Banerjee, member of the Forum for Strategic Initiatives, New Delhi, Major General Munir Zaman, President of the Bangladesh Institute of Peace and Security Studies, and Dr. Iftekhar A Chowdhury, Principal Research Fellow at the Institute of South Asian Studies and former Foreign Minister of Bangladesh. Thank you, distinguished speakers. We will now adjourn for a short break while we prepare for the keynote address by His Excellency Mr. Amjad Hussain Sial, Secretary General of SAARC, because his keynote address will be delivered via video conference. So there is a break of 15 minutes. I would like to invite all of you to have a coffee break outside. Kindly be seated in the auditorium by 11:40 so we can resume the session. Thank you.
Good morning from Singapore. We wish that you would be here with us. It's a very good audience, and but even otherwise, you are looking very good. And welcome to this conference. And I would like to request you for your stage.
Thank you very much. I would have loved to be there, but because of this visa issue, I could not make it. In any case, I will deliver my statement and then we'll give it to you by email.
Yes, please.
Distinguished Chairman of the Institute of Asian Studies, distinguished representatives of think tanks from SAARC region, distinguished participants. I wish to thank the Center for South Asian Studies for inviting me to address the workshop on re-energizing the SAARC process through video conferencing. The theme of the workshop is very pertinent. I do hope that this workshop will make useful recommendations for revitalizing the SAARC process. As we all know, SAARC is a people-centric organization. As enshrined in its charter, promotion of welfare and well-being of the peoples is the cardinal objective of SAARC. It is, therefore, essential that all endeavors in SAARC process should be geared toward the attainment of this objective. The summit constitutes the highest political platform in the SAARC. The summit enables the SAARC process to benefit from vision of the leaders. It also provides an opportunity for bilateral meetings of the leaders as well as exchange of views among them on important issues in an informal in the retreat. Essentially, summits determine the direction of the SAARC process, define the scope of regional cooperation, and provide policy directives. The SAARC Charter provides that summits should be held annually. At the 18th SAARC Summit, held in Kathmandu in November 2014, the leaders decided that the summits would be held biennially or earlier if necessary. Likewise, as per the decision of the 18th Summit, the Council of Ministers and the Standing Committee should meet once a year and Programming Committee twice a year. In my view, holding of sessions of such important charter bodies as decided by the summit, as well as meetings of other mechanisms with appropriate representation, will provide impetus to the SAARC process. All of us are aware of the significance of connectivity, which is sine qua non for regional integration. We need to expeditiously connect our countries in the region through air, road, rail, and sea. It will, in conjunction with other measures, facilitate regional economic integration, leading eventually to the realization of the goal of South Asian Economic Union, as envisaged by our leaders. The SAARC Air Services Agreement is under consideration for improving air connectivity. Motor vehicles and railway agreements, once adopted by SAARC, will facilitate connectivity by surface. The SAARC ferry service will begin soon between Sri Lanka and India and may be extended to other countries in the next phase. These measures for improving the regional connectivity will promote economic relations, people-to-people contacts, and tourism. We need to engage our youth in the promotion of SAARC process. The South Asian University is a very useful platform to bring together students in the region. I am happy to inform you that recently held SAARC Ministers meeting at Colombo adopted my proposal for the establishment of SAARC Medical University. This will also promote amity among our younger generation. Besides, there should be regular exchanges of students with a view to passing the SAARC spirit on to our youth. Besides exchanges of students, there should be regular interaction among scholars, intellectuals, writers, artists, and exchanges of cultural tools to promote friendship among our peoples. Trade fairs, tourism fairs, and film and food festivals are other measures that will help to promote people-to-people contacts. SAARC Apex and recognized bodies can also play a vital role in this respect. There is a need to strengthen regional cooperation in priority areas identified by the member states, and the programs should be result-based and implemented in a time-bound manner. A focused approach with emphasis on concrete results is the need of the hour. The SAARC regional centers should perform as centers of excellence and must pursue result-oriented programs in their respective areas to bring tangible outcomes to the peoples. The timely implementation of decisions taken by intergovernmental bodies will re-energize the SAARC process. For effective and efficient implementation of decisions, there is a need to strengthen the SAARC divisions, appoint sectoral focal points, and hold at least one annual consultation meeting at the national level under the chairmanship of the Foreign Secretary. The Secretariat should also play its due role in coordination and monitoring the implementation of SAARC activities and decisions taken by the member states. The enhancement of the institutional capacity of the SAARC Secretariat is important to re-energize the SAARC process. It will enable the Secretariat to fulfill its responsibilities in an efficient and effective manner in keeping with the emerging realities. SAARC currently has 9 observers. As directed by our leaders at the 18th summit, we must engage our observers in productive, demand-driven and objective project-based cooperation in priority areas identified by the member states, such as communication, connectivity, agriculture, public health, energy, environment, and economic cooperation. SAARC has cooperation agreements or memoranda of understanding with a number of regional and international organizations. It is necessary for us to engage in substantive and project-based collaboration with these organizations. At the same time, we should also endeavor to present SAARC's common position at international fora on issues of common interest. Distinguished participants, I have shared my views on the topic chosen for this workshop. I look forward to receiving the report of the workshop to benefit from the learned views of the participants. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and your address. I'd like to give the mic to former Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, Dr. Iftekhar A Chowdhury. If you'd like to give some inputs or some questions to you. Hold on for some time.
Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you, Secretary General. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
In the days when you were in the United Nations, I'm told it was during my time as permanent representative in the PR.
Well, I served there from 1996 to 2000 and 2009 to 2011, two times.
Nonetheless, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. It's a shame that we couldn't have you with us. We wanted that so badly, but this is not this is the first of our several interactions, I'd like to think. You will certainly get a report on our deliberations. On behalf of all of us, all the co-sponsors, we'd like to convey to you our most sincere thanks, and thank you for setting the tone of our deliberations. Henceforth, very sound words, very sagacious comments and remarks. We expected nothing less, of course, but once again,
Thank you very much.
okay, flowers.
Flowers.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Sial, Secretary General of SAARC, who has been virtually with us via video conference. Thank you also Dr. Pandey and Dr. Chowdhury for your moderation. I would like now to give the floor to Dr. Chowdhury. May I now invite on stage once again Mr. Echle to receive a token of appreciation, and also Dr. Pandey to receive a token of appreciation from Professor Mitra. Mr. Echle, Dr. Pandey, and Professor Mitra, please.
We're doing okay for time, right?
We have 2 books here as a token. Bangladesh, Reflections on an Emerging Nation by Dr. Iftekhar A Chowdhury, and Professor Echle, The Emerging Dimensions of SAARC. And I'm delighted, it's not mere tokenism. These are the founding stones on which are erected the great ideas that we are about to come up with, make a list of, and hand over to the Konrad Foundation for implementation. at a later stage. So, I'm delighted. Thank you very much. And yes, thank you very much. Since no one has done so much as an ex-ISAS for ISAS, I have to greet you as director. He was a fellow of ISAS way before I had heard about ISAS. So, well done for your second coming. May you stay.
Second coming is usually associated with IoT.
Thank you, Mr. Echle, Dr. Pandey, and Professor Mitra. May I now give the floor to Dr. Iftekhar A Chowdhury in order to deliver his vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sylvia. We're doing well for time, and I want to thank everyone for conforming to the time limit. This is going to be very important as the day unfolds. We go into our substantive work. Director Subrata Mitra, distinguished ambassador, High Commissioners of Pakistan and Bangladesh, Mr. Christian Echle, participants from South Asia, friends of ISAS and colleagues at ISAS, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all. Of course, I will be frightfully remiss were I not to begin by thanking the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung for holding our hands, not just this time round, because I heard signals and assurances that the process of cooperation that we will have established by the end of this event will continue. For a variety of reasons, South Asia is increasingly turning towards Germany, in particular, and Europe, old Europe more broadly, for intellectual, emotional, and even material nourishment. So thank you for that. As the English idiom goes, we should cut the cattle and come to the horses. Last night we had a very successful dinner, by the way, and our substantive work had already begun. In the course of the dinner, a request was made that those of us who had been associated with the establishment of SAARC, or present-day creations, as we say, should we give an oral rendering of the history, is it all right? Okay, oral rendering of history. In that context, I should like to say that I was one of those who was privileged, perhaps more due to the length of years spent rather than anything else. Anyway, I was privileged to be present at the creation. I've just come back with my PhD International Relations from Australian National University, and when that was the moment which Stefan Zweig, in his memorable work, Decisive Moments in History, he calls it Stellstunden, which translated from German would mean stellar moments. Those were the stellar moments of SAARC's creation. The idea was there for a while, as far back as 1972, 6th of February, sorry. The founder of Bangladesh, Prime Minister Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he at a dinner hosted for him by Mrs. Gandhi had spoken of the idea of a regional cooperation, and he had said, and I'll quote from him, he said, otherwise history would not forgive us. In the years that followed, it became apparent that Bangladesh was ideally placed to initiate the process because because of its the nature of its political relationships with other SAARC countries, it was well poised to serve as a conduit among and between the SAARC countries. So President Ziaur Rahman made the first moves in 1980, and I was there then Director of Policy Planning at the Foreign Office. A small group of 6 people were initially set up, and we were inspired by something that you spoke about earlier on today, Professor Mitra, the functionalists. The functionalist Ernst Haas, who was a German-American theorist, David Mitrani, and their ilk, and inspired by what was achieved in the European Union or the European Economic Community at that point in time. We had also, some of us had exposure to the Pacific Forum from Australia, and apart from those who made European Union success, Jean Monnet, Paul Henry Spark, we also followed the inspirations we received from people like, and this is largely forgotten, Ratusar Kamisese, Mara, Michael Somare, etc., people like that. In fact, initially, there was an idea that this association should be called South Asian Forum, but for a variety of reasons, of course, it was named South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, which I thought actually represented what it was intended to do. Understandably, we had problems, opposition from the two major protagonists in the subcontinent, India and Pakistan. Pakistan felt that this move could have been India-driven. India felt that it could be a clubbing together of the smaller fellows, and India would be tied down like something like a Gulliver by the Lilliputians. So that was the. Therefore, we decided to approach it with a lot of circumspection, very gingerly. The decision was to start from working levels, from official levels, and move up to the political masters, not from the political masters downwards. So we began with what was called Foreign Secretaries' Conferences. The first one in 1981 didn't yield very much result, but the second one in Kathmandu, Tribhuvan University, did. And we were able to obtain the green signal, particularly from India and Pakistan, and largely and also from the other countries. So this was during the second Foreign Secretaries meeting in Kathmandu. Thereafter, as you know, the process was set in motion. Letters from President Sial went to all the heads of government, and eventually SAARC was the first summit took place in Dhaka in 1985. But because of these existing apprehensions, there were two principles which were written into the charter. First was no contentious issues would be discussed, no Kashmir, no water, and second, all decisions would be taken by consensus. So that would mean that, you see, there was very little prospect of anything getting done really, because at these two levels you can't get major decisions made with these reservations. Then again, we had four layers of decision making. Directors General, one layer, foreign secretaries, another layer, foreign ministers, and then heads of government. Unlike other organizations where there were only two, there were only official level and political level. So here we had four. So it became increasingly difficult to get anything up to the political masters, which was where their hands were tied by their bureaucrats earlier on. It's also, so it was almost as if it was a recipe for failure. And it was unfair to expect SAARC under those circumstances to achieve something which was ahead of what the countries had actually achieved in terms of collaboration. The relationships were so difficult actually among countries that there was always this danger of falling into what is known in international relations today as Thucydides trap. The trap that you fear that the other party is getting more powerful and therefore will strike. As you probably know, this famous Greek historian had said about the Peloponnesian War, when Athens grew strong, there was great fear in Sparta, and therefore war was inevitable. So So that was the problem. One thing was we decided that we would begin across on very small issues collaboration so that tensions at more central levels would become diffused. That was the philosophic basis of how SAARC was functioning. Today, of course, we have heard all the difficulties that we are confronted with, but I'm going to argue that we are not really flogging a dead horse in SAARC, and there are ways and means of achieving some of the aspirations that we set up. It's important, of course, to gauge the nature of the matrix of the world that we are working in. We see that the major power in the world is overtaken sadly by elements of bigotry and therefore hate and descending from the leadership role it had been playing. The post-World War II political, economic, global order is almost on the verge of collapse, and international relations hates vacuum. There will be other value systems sort of coming to fill that in. Now, we ourselves in South Asia are becoming subject to sectarian conflict, rising majoritarian intolerance, and narrowing of the secular space in our politics. South Asia has vast intellectual resources, and there is absolutely no reason why we should not be able to tap into this to our advantage. So, as Lenin famously asked, what is to be done? What is to be done is, if the governments are unable to lead, let us bring in the peoples. We are going to have to convert it into a people's SAARC, and therefore we would need institutions like ISAS, COSAC, where the thought leaders of South Asia are gathered to take the leadership role. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I know we have a hill to climb, and I also know that waiting will not make it any smaller. I thank you. Okay, so we will now break for lunch. I would request all of you to come here at 1 o'clock.
12:45,
Okay.
because we are doing very well on the schedule, so 12:45.
Okay, 12:45 then, I go by what my aide has instructed me. At 12:45 come, and 12:45, 30 seconds, I will commence the first session. Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry?